The satires of Joseph Hall and John Marston reveal that Francis Bacon was the secret author of Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece. A large part of the misinformation that William Shakespeare of Stratford wrote the Shakespeare poems and plays rests upon the falsehood that none of his contemporaries ever expressed any doubts about his authorship. This fabrication is critical to the deception that William Shakespeare wrote the Shakespeare poems and plays. It allows orthodox Shakespeare scholars to insist that the authorship question is a modern idea that only took root in the second half of the 19th century, and so therefore need not be taken seriously. Across several publications from 1597 to 1599, the satirist and divine Joseph Hall and the poet, playwright and divine John Marston repeatedly reveal and confirm that Francis Bacon wrote Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece, hidden behind his pseudonym William Shakespeare. The irrefutable Hall and Marston documentary evidence has been either suppressed, misrepresented or overcomplicated by orthodox Shakespeare scholars, because it dismantles the falsehood that William Shakespeare wrote the Shakespeare poems and plays. At its heart, it came down to the literary disputes and jealousies. Hall objected morally to the racy tone of the Shakespeare poems. Marston disagreed, and their literary wars played out in several satirical works and revealed that Labeo was the writer of the Shakespeare poems and that Labeo was Francis Bacon. The poet and divine Joseph Hall, Bishop of Norwich, had known Francis Bacon and members of the Bacon family all his adult life and had enjoyed their patronage for many years. He moved in the private and secret world of Bacon and was very familiar with his writings and scientific interests, which he shared with Bacon's nephew Sir Edmund Bacon. Hall was also part of the London literary scene of poets, writers and dramatists, and the secretive world of the London printers and publishers, many of whom had close relationships with Bacon and published many of his anonymous and pseudonymous works. Hall was certainly in a position to know if Bacon was the concealed author of the Shakespeare poems. This secret he unmistakably and irrefutably revealed through his literary spat with the poet and playwright John Marston. Playwright, poet, satirist and of later days priest, John Marston was also a member of the Middle Temple within walking distance of nearby Gray's Inn, where Francis Bacon was residing. During these years, the Shakespeare poems, Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece, were in continual print, as they were the racy bestsellers of the day, and Shakespeare plays were regularly being acted on the London stages. Bacon and Marston will have seen each other privately and professionally on a regular basis, and the latter was certainly familiar with the Shakespeare poems and plays. In 1597, Joseph Hall set forth the first 3 books of his Virgidemiarum, followed in 1598 by a second edition, containing the last 3 books of his satires, parts of which were aimed at the hidden author of the Shakespeare poems. These were replied to by John Marston in the Metamorphoses and Certain Satires in 1598, and later the same year the Scourge of Villainy. In them he reveals Bacon is Shakespeare. Francis Bacon, as the secret author of the Shakespeare poems, was the subject of a literary war waged between the 2 divines. The moral satirist Joseph Hall, afterwards Bishop of Exeter and Norwich, objected in his 2 volumes of Carpin's satires to what he saw as the lascivious nature of the Shakespeare poem Venus and Adonis. His combatant, the poet and dramatist John Marston, motivated by Hall's stinging attacks, put his versatile pen to work in the black art of satire. In their series of pugnacious satires published in the late 1590s, Hall and Marston, amidst their acrimonious exchanges, both write of an individual named Labeo, whom they both identify identify as the author of the Shakespeare poems, as well as eventually drawing back the curtain to reveal his real identity. In an astonishing passage following the end of Hall's Book 1, there appears a verse in which Hall explicitly and plainly states that his book contains a secret which he invites his readers to find out. Search they that mean the secret meaning find. It should be said throughout the satires there are accompanying anagrams, ciphers, and wordplay, so loved the period. So what then is the secret contained within his book which Joseph Hall invites his readers to find out? The answer is even revealed within this verse. Its author Hall is clearly familiar with the secret signatures Bacon utilises to mark his work, and also familiar with Bacon's simple cipher system and how to apply it. The verse incorporates an acrostic of Bacon and F. Bacon, and the last three lines of the verse begins with S-H-A, an obvious contraction of Shakespeare. Following the above verse by Joseph Hall that clearly and unmistakably states that the work contains a secret, Book 2, Satire 1 identifies the figure whom the secret is about, disguised under the name Labeo, whose identity is revealed through the anagram F. Bacon. Labeo was a great Roman jurist and writer, and the name also has the same numerical value of the concealed writer Hall is alluding to, Bacon. In 1598, Hall issued the second volume of his satires. He tells how Labeo is protected by his invisibility. Early in 1598, in reply to Joseph Hall's first three books published the year before, John Marston issued his first work, The Metamorphoses. As the text illustrates, Marston is not pleased with Hall's satires, and he is especially irritated by his criticism of Labeo, who Hall had clearly identified as the author of Venus and Adonis, with Marston equally aware of Labeo's true identity. The Labeo of Hall and Marston is one and the same, and both clearly identify Labeo as the author of Venus and Adonis. Marston is not only aware that Labeo, the cover name used by Hall, is the author of Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece, but, like Hall, he unmistakably reveals he is also aware of Labeo's true identity. In his fourth satire, entitled Reactio, while Marston does not refer to Labeo by name, he artfully lifts up the veil to unmask the identity of the true author of Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece. Marston says, "What, does not even mediocria firma escape from thy spite?" The Latin mediocria firma is Francis Bacon's family motto. It appears over a portrait of Bacon placed at the beginning of the 1626 edition of the Silva Silvero, and is likewise found in several other editions of the work. On the frontispiece to the second volume of the 1740 edition of the works of Francis Bacon appears the achievement of arms of Francis Bacon, at the top of which is the Bacon family crest of the boar, with the Latin motto Mediocria Firma supporting two Roman officers flanking a coat of arms. Furthermore, the whole page contains a series of ciphers and anagrams confirming Labeo is Bacon, the secret author of the Shakespeare poems. Without mentioning Labeo by name, Marston asks, "Do you presume you are unseen? And if not, why did you let a superscribed letter fall?" revealing he has seen the secret signature used by Bacon in the Rape of Lucrece. Now that Marston has once more conveyed that he is privy to Labeo's true identity, one concealed behind the mask of William Shakespeare, the name used to authorally mark Venus and Adonis and the rape of Lucrece. He implores him to reveal himself, for shame and mask. In the following year, Marston issued a second volume entitled The Scourge of Villainy. Its first page is titled To Detraction I Present My Posy, which incorporates a series of Baconian ciphers and anagrams. In Satire 9, entitled Here's a Toy to Mock an Ape Indeed, Marston digresses from reproaching contemporary writers for their affected style, something he says only befits an ape, to address an unnamed judicial writer for whom he says he loves more than any other, and in doing so returns to the superscribed letter. Far fly thy fame, most of me beloved, whose silent name one letter bounds. The superscribed letter, whose silent name one letter bounds, is a reference to the very large capital letter F found at the beginning of the first edition of The Rape of Lucrece, commencing the first line of the poem. The first two lines are headed by a monogram, a motif of two or more letters, signifying a person's initials interwoven as an overt cryptic device. The three letters so printed form a square of the letters FR, B, and the letters F and B the initials of Francis Bacon. The last page of The Rape of Lucrece concludes with another secret Baconian signature. When a line is drawn from the F of Finis, the letters on the left side of the line read F. Bacon. So we can see that Labeo is Shakespeare, is Bacon. Labeo, a judicial writer, as is Bacon. Labeo is also called Mediocria Firma, which is the Bacon family motto. And Labeo and Bacon names have the same numerical value of 33. Joseph Hall and John Marston knew Francis Bacon through family connections and professional circles. They were undoubtedly privy to the secret that he was the concealed author of Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece, who wrote poems and plays behind the pseudonym William Shakespeare. In the late 1590s, during a literary spat between them, Hall and Marston revealed that Labeo was the author of the Shakespeare poems, and the author behind the name Labeo was Francis Bacon.